Hello everyone, I'm Naval Yamul. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, The Data Master. We are in the playlist of Databricks Certified Data Engineering Associate. I got a very good response for my part 1, 2, and 3. So, in this video, I'm going to cover part 4 and 5 together for the certification preparation of Databricks Data Engineering Associate level. As I've already covered part 1 on the Lakehouse platform, part 2 on ETL or ELT with a Spark SQL and with Python, and third part was based on the incremental data processing, and fourth today's topic will cover on the production pipeline. So I strongly recommend you to watch my previous part 1, 2, and 3. So this part 4 is a combination of part 3 also, because we are taking forward to DLT, that is Delta Life Table, and production pipeline, and then we are going to see about the Databricks SQL. So that are the topics on this part, and we'll look at the data governance part also. Let us start. First, we are going to look at the production pipeline. So, few questions on the pipeline were covered in the part 3. So I request you to please watch that, and then you can cover the part 4 and 5. So starting with the very first question. So, as I've already explained what is DLT and how the DLT UI looks like, and we already have one video on the Delta Live table. So, if you are completely new, I suggest you to please watch that video also. Okay. So the question says a data engineer has three tables in a Delta Live table pipeline. Delta Live table pipeline. They have configured a pipeline to drop the invalid rows. So so Delta Live table will use only a SQL command or a Python command to do a complete ETL. Okay, so they want to drop a invalid records at each table. So at every table they got some invalid records and they want to drop it. They notice that some data is being dropped due to quality concerns at some point in the Delta Live table. They would like to determine at which table in their pipeline the data is being dropped. Which of the following approaches can a data engineer take to identify the table that is dropping off the records? So before I show you the options, I would like to show you how does the DLT looks like. So let me show you this, and then we'll go on to see the options. So whenever you run a Delta Live table pipeline, it looks something like this. So I have run one example. Let me cancel out the logs here. Let me cancel out this. So at the end, you will be getting the details about all the tables in this way. We click here, fit to the viewport. So I'll just explain you. This is a Delta Live table run in a development environment. So it is a streaming table. So we have two bronze table. I have joined this to get a silver table. And then I have created one gold table or a materialized view on top of it. So the data is streaming in this way. So when you are streaming, let us imagine that if there are some null values, some corrupt records on something, we want to drop off that records. So whatever the rows are dropped, that can be seen here. You can see the drop records, and here all the 29,000 records were written, and there are zero drops here. And in this table there are no drops. So I did not had any constraint. The data was clean, so it is going in a smooth way without any drops. But when you write some constraint, so in the previous video I talked about the constraint where I told you about adding a constraint on the table. If you have nulls, if you have some duplicates, it will drop off. You can find that drop records somewhere here. Now it is zero in all cases. So now moving to the questions here. Sorry, moving to the question and looking at the options. Let me show you the options here. So they can set up a separate exception for each table when deploying their DLT pipeline. So they are saying that separate exception for each table. Maybe we'll see that. They cannot determine which table is dropping off. This option goes off because we can determine which records are going off. They can set up a DLT notify them via mail when the records are dropped. No, we don't need to notify. We don't need to set up any alert or on a mail. So that is gone. They can navigate to Delta Live table pipeline, click on the each table and view the data quality statistics. So obviously the answer is data quality statistics. I'll show you that. Let me go back again here. suppose if I click on this table, you get up the data quality. So once you click on this data quality, you will get the statistics exactly like how many rows were written, how many rows were dropped, how many percentage. You get all the statistics. So the answer says that is when you click on that particular table, can see the statistics of the table. So your answer will be D, that quality statistics. I hope that is clear to you. So if you look at the other options, they are not so relevant. So the only answer that is coming out of the question is D. That is, you can view the data quality statistics when you click on that table. That is about the first question. Now let us move to the next question. That is D. Let us move to the next question. Next question says that a data engineer has a single task job. So again, we have covered what are jobs and all those things in the previous video, or I have a separate video on the Databricks jobs. I request you to please watch that. Single task job. So in a job, there can be a multiple task, like you can create one task, two tasks, and so on. But here we have only one task in a job. Okay, we don't have other tasks. So that runs each morning before they begin working. So before they work, the job runs after identifying upstream data issue. So what is upstream? So when your data is flowing, so you can see the upstream and downstream. So suppose if you talk about this table has been coming from a raw table or a bronze table, and from this again it is moving to the gold table. So gold table becomes a downstream here, and this bronze table becomes a upstream here. So this is a silver table. I'm just giving you a scenario. So they need to set up an another task. So they want to set up one more task here. So let us assume that they want this task to run in a new notebook prior to the original task. Okay, so this is my original task. I'll call this as OG. So before I run this notebook or this task, I want to create one more task. Okay, which is the following approach can be data engineer used to set up a new task. So before that, let me again go back to my Databricks here. Here I have already created one job. Let me show you Databricks jobs. I have executed few job runs here. Let me show you. Good. See, I have just opened one of my jobs here, workflow jobs. Here I have created only one task. So according to the question, they need to add one more task here. So your task can be based on the notebook or a Python notebook or a code or anything, but let us keep it as a notebook only, your Databricks work workspace notebook. So here, when you take up this notebook, it this new notebook will be depending on the original notebook. So you can see this. So one of the important parameter here is it shows that depends on. So this notebook is depending on. So this question is similar to the same one. So just read the question now. So they need to set up another task to run a new notebook prior. So prior. If you remember, here I have given this new task after it executes the original task, but they want it to be a prior one. So what you can do, just you go back to this notebook or this task, and just you need to change it to depending on the previous task. That's the only thing you have to do. So let me show up the options here. So they can clone the existing task. So they are not talking anything about the cloning. They can create a new task in the existing job and then add a dependency of the original task. Yeah, this is what I am trying to say. So dependency, but there is a small uh, catch here. So there is a confusion here. So they create a new task in the existing job and then add the original task as a dependency. So there is a confusion between these two. So let us keep this aside and let us see the next options. They can create a new job from scratch. No, they don't want a new job. They can clone. So they don't want a clone. So now the two options that are coming out is B and C. So you need to be careful, read the options correctly and then mark it. So they can create a new task. Yeah, it is saying both in the existing job and then add it as a dependency of the original task. Yeah, so because here the keyword is prior, so you need to whatever the new task you are creating, in that task you need to give the dependency to the original task. So that is your option B. Let me check. Yeah, it is option B. So you need to add it as a dependency to the original task. So the answer coming out of the question is B. I hope you got this. Let us move to the next question. So an engineering manager wants to monitor a performance of the recent project using a Databricks SQL query. So now this is a completely new topic, but they have introduced that into our production pipeline only. But when it comes to Databricks SQL, let me take a minute. So okay, I'll show you. So this is my new account. Okay, here I'll show you. So Databricks has got a new UI, as I've already created one video on that. You can see Databricks SQL editor. So for that, you need to create a SQL warehouse. So there are 3 to 4 questions based on these Databricks SQL on the warehouse side and on the Databricks SQL query side. So so this is more or less a serverless. It is a completely serverless, and like everything will be managed by your Azure Databricks or AWS Databricks. So it is a serverless feature of Databricks. Okay, so the questions are based on the SQL query. So for the first week following the project's release, the manager wants to query results on the updated results to be updated every minute. However, the manager is concerned that the compute resources used for the query will be left running and the cost of organization a lot of money beyond the first week of the project release. So what they are trying to say is, so for the first week, the following the project release, they want to query the results updated on every minute. You can see on every minute they want to update it. But however, the manager is very much concerned about the cost, that they are thinking like there will be a lot of money beyond the first week of the project release. Before the first week of project, there will be a lot of money. So, which of the following approach can data engineer use to ensure that the query does not cost the organization any money beyond the first week of the project's release? So, what would be the option? So, let me read out the options here. They can set a limit the number of DBUs that are consumed by the SQL endpoints. So, you do not get that option. So, let me show you those. So, when you go for the SQL warehouse, let me show you. So now that SQL warehouse is inside your compute only. So you can see I already have one compute size of 2x. But if you want to create a new SQL warehouse, you can see you get a cluster size starting from 2x to 4x. So depending upon the use case, you can choose the cluster size, but you do not get any option like you can limit a DBU. So DBU units is not in your hand. So the depending on the cluster size, you get your DBU per hour. So you do not get that option to limit the TBU consumption by SQL endpoints. Cool. So the option A is gone. Second option, that is, they can set a queries refresh schedule to end after a certain number of refresh. So the query will run, but it will run only certain number of times before it stops. So this is not a correct option. So the third is they cannot ensure the query does not cost the organization money beyond the first week of the project's release. The data engineering team can ensure this. So there is a slight catch here again. So you might feel that the answer is C. Let us move forward. They can set a limit to a number of individuals. So they're saying number of individuals that are able to manage the query's refresh schedule. So the query will still run, but only the individuals who are authorized can manage the refresh schedule and able to stop it. So maybe that is also not a correct option. So they can set a query's refresh schedule at to end on a certain date in a query scheduler. So actually there is an option inside your Databricks when you are querying by using a query scheduler. Let me show you that. So you can see this link. I'll be giving you this link in your description. So you can schedule a query. So once you write a query, you can refresh that. So if you look at the option here, so they want to refresh it, update it every minute. So here you can get an option. Here you get an advanced options also, where you can refresh it every minute or every hour, and you can save it. So you can like refresh your schedule. You can set a particular time. So with this, you will save a lot of lot of amount. So by the help of query scheduler, you can achieve this. So the answer that is coming out of is C. So if you look at many like documentation, you might feel that they cannot ensure that the query does not cost that the organization money beyond the first week of the project release. But I feel that the answer is E, where you can set up an end to on a certain date in a query scheduler. So after 1 week, you can end the query refresh by using the query scheduler. So the answer is E, and that is correct. So let us move to the next question. That is correct, E. Moving to the next question. A data analysis team has noticed that their Databricks SQL queries are running too slowly when connected to their on SQL, uh, they're always on SQL endpoints. So SQL endpoints are now replaced with the word or a phrase called as a SQL warehouse. Now it is called as a SQL warehouse. They claim that this issue is present when many members of the team are running small queries simultaneously. So you just look at these keywords. There are many members and they are running very small queries, and that too simultaneously. So these words are really important. These keywords are really important. Then moving forward, they ask the data engineering team so for help. Data engineering team notices that each of the team's query uses the same SQL endpoint. So SQL endpoint, now it is called as a SQL warehouse. Which of the following approaches can data engineer team use to improve the latency in the team query? So what they can do? So obviously they can increase the SQL warehouse size. So okay, let us look at the options and then we'll decide. So first option is they can increase the cluster size of the SQL endpoint. Second is they can increase the maximum bound of the SQL endpoint scaling range. So they can turn the auto stop feature for the SQL endpoint. So let me cancel out the options which are not very much relevant. So they we are not anyway talking about the auto stop feature for the SQL warehouse. Yeah, SQL warehouse has a auto stop feature, but this question is saying something like they have a latency. We need to increase their cluster size. So maybe we will talk about A or B. Now moving further, they can turn on the serverless feature of the SQL endpoints. SQL warehouse is a serverless feature only. So we are not talking anything on this. They can turn on the serverless feature of the SQL endpoints and change the spot instances policies or reliability optimized. So no, that is not a correct option actually. There is nothing related to reliability optimized and so on. So these two are important. When you talk about the SQL warehouse, let me show that. Give me a second. Yeah. When you take up this, you can see. So if you are picking up cluster size, so this is a SQL warehouse. It was called as a SQL endpoints. Now it is called as a SQL warehouse. Then cluster size, you can choose your cluster size. Yeah, auto stop feature is available for that. We're talking about the cluster size or on the scaling part. Do you want to scale it? Like when you make minimum one and maximum two, and you can see here, you will be getting clusters like 4 to 8. So this is same like our all purpose cluster. If you remember, all purpose cluster is an interactive cluster where we manage all the things, like we select the type of that worker, how many drivers we, how many worker nodes we want, what are the cores, how many cores do we want, GB, everything. But when it comes to SQL warehouse, it is a serverless, so we are not able to get the driver type, worker type, and all those things. Behind the scene, Databricks and Azure are taking care of that. So so here it comes to scaling. So when you look at this, scale cluster to handle more concurrent users. So look at this tooltip here. It is saying scale clusters to handle more concurrent users. So when you want more users to be executing, you need to increase the scaling from one cluster size. You can go for two or three and so on. When it comes to cluster size, to reduce the query latency, if you want to reduce the query latency, you increase the cluster size. So this will create a lot of confusion, that do you want to increase the cluster size or do you want to increase the scaling size, or you want to expand the scaling. Yeah, so the option say, the keyword in the question says that there are many users, and because of that users, they are getting a latency. So the option would be scaling. If there is only one user and if we feel that there is a latency querying or is taking a more time to query, then you can increase the cluster size. So depending upon the keywords here in the question, so it is saying that your it is a latency and there are many members. You need to increase the maximum bound of the scaling range. You need to increase the scaling range. So answer would be B. So don't get confused. Look at the keywords here. They are asking many members and then it is a latency. So it would be answer B, that is increase your SQL warehouse scaling range. That was about the fourth question. Let us move towards the next question. A data engineer wants to schedule the Databricks SQL dashboard to refresh once per day. Yes, Databricks has a feature. Databricks SQL has a feature of creating a dashboard. So let me show you that in a minute. So you can see here, we'll cancel this and then go to the Databricks dashboards. Here you can see, so I created one simple dashboard, first dashboard. You can see you got a dashboard here. Okay, so yeah, you can see I have created a simple dashboard here. So what they want here is, uh, they want SQL dashboard to refresh once per day. So they want to refresh it per day, but they only want to want the associated SQL endpoint, that is your SQL warehouse, to be running when it is necessary. So whenever the SQL dashboard needs to be refreshed, at that moment they want to start their SQL warehouse. Which of the following approach can a data engineer use to minimize the total running time of the SQL warehouse or a SQL endpoint used in the refresh schedule of their dashboard? Yes, so as I've told you, Databricks SQL has a feature of auto stop feature. Once your workload is done, so automatically your SQL warehouse will be terminated. So the answer comes out of this is D. They can turn on the auto stop feature for the SQL endpoints, and suppose they want to refresh it at a particular time, they can set up a refresh on the dashboard. Your SQL warehouse will start up at that point and it will refresh it. And after it's done, auto stop feature will help you to stop the warehouse again. So that we have already talked in the previous slide, that is auto stop feature is available in the SQL warehouse. You can use that to save up a lot of your resources once your refresh is done. That was about the fifth question. Next, a data engineer has been using a Databricks SQL dashboard, okay, dashboard to monitor the cleanliness of the input data to an ELT job. The ELT job as its Databricks SQL query that returns the number of input records containing unexpected null values. So they are doing an ELT and it runs in a job, and Databricks SQL query returns the number of input records containing unexpected null values. The data engineer wants their entire team to be notified via messaging webhook whenever this value reaches 100. So if they want some notification, some alert system, so yes, Databricks has that system called as a Databricks alerts. You can see this. So you can set up an alert. As I've created an alert, but I think I've dropped it. So you can just click on create alert. So you can give alert name and you can just select the query. So you have to save that queries, the SQL editor, you save that query and you can select the query here. I think I need to, okay. So here you can give a condition on which column do you want to set up an alert. So suppose I want to set up an alert for this column based on this threshold value. So you can get a notification just once, or depending on the use case, you can refresh it based on this SQL warehouse. So I will make a separate video on this alerts, guys. You can just watch that. But now with this alert you can notify all the team members. But here they are saying that via messaging webhook whenever the value reaches 100. So you need to create a Databricks alerts, that is for sure. And your all the option says that you can get an alert. So when it comes to a keyword here, that is webhook messaging, yes, you got an option here. They can set up an alert with an new webhook alert destination. With the help of new webhook alert destination, you can notify all the entire team when the value reaches 100. So the answer would be C here. So the keyword will match, that is webhook messaging. And you can see the you can see some of the documentation also. I'll be giving you the link of this. So Databricks SQL, you may get one more question like on what the Databricks can notify the alerts, that is with the help of webhook. It can be possible by sending a notification by using a Slack or the pager duty. These are possible. Sometimes they can ask you that whether it is possible to alert by using a SMS. No, by SMS it doesn't. By default it will give you a mail notification, that is by default. But if you can set up a webhook also, and you can set up a notification by a Slack or pager duty. But SMS is not an option. So you may get that in your exam, that what are the different types of notifications you can set up on the alerts. One is webhook, one is Slack, one is email notification, and one is SMS. So answer SMS is not a correct answer. So that is about the alert. So let me go proceed further. Next question. A single job runs two notebooks. Okay, cool. So there is a single job that runs two notebook as two separate tasks. Within a job, as I've told you in the workflows, in the job, we have two different tasks here, two separate tasks. Within two separate tasks, there are two different notebooks. A data engineer has noticed that one of the notebooks is running very slow. So maybe this notebook, let us assume that it is running slow in a job's current run. The data engineer asked the tech lead for help in identifying why this might be the case. Which of the following approaches can the tech lead use to identify why the notebook is running as a part of the job? Let us look at the options here, guys. Okay, we can navigate to the runs tab in the job UI to immediately review the processing notebook. Yes, so you can let me show the workflow here. So this is my job runs here. You can see. So I have created a task and I have executed it, and I can see the job runs here. So I can see, okay, once I get inside this, I can see the processing time, like how much it took. So like which notebook took how many seconds and why it got failed, all can be seen once I click on this. Or you can just scroll down. Once you just scroll down here, you can see the detail about the job. So yesterday and today my job got failed. I can click on this and just look in the detail about this, why it got executed, why it got failed, and so on. Or why it took so much time. I can look into that when I click on the active runs. So here, yes, they can navigate to the runs tab in the job UI to immediately review the processing notebook. So immediately review the processing notebook is the not correct option. So they can navigate the tasks tab. No, we are not talking about the task tab. We are talking about the runs tab only. You need to understand this. There are two tabs, runs tab and the task tab. So they want to, when you want to create a task, you can go for the task tab, but they want to know the runs tab. So the option would be obviously the runs tab. So you get two options only here. Rest all you can just remove it. And the D option is there is no way to determine why the job task is running slow. No, it is not. It is not a correct one. Yes, there is a way you can look into why the job run is running slow. So in a job UI and click on the active runs. So you can see I have shown you the green color there. So you can just click on it to review the processing notebook. The answer would be in this case. Yes, that is C. I hope that is clear to you. Yeah, let us move to the next question. A data engineer has a job with multiple tasks that runs nightly. Each of the tasks runs slowly because of the cluster taking too long time to start. Yes, so when you create a job, you will select either a all-purpose cluster and a job cluster. In a production environment, we always prefer using a job cluster only. So the you have scheduled it. Suppose you have scheduled it at 2 o'clock or 12 o'clock in the evening. So when your job starts executing it, so it may take 4 to 5 minutes to just start your cluster. So that is your cluster will take a long time to start, and once your cluster starts, then it starts executing your task. So that they are saying the same thing, that every night it runs nightly and it takes a long time to start your cluster. So what you can do to improve this startup time? So yes, Databricks has a beautiful feature called pools. So let me show that. So in your Databricks compute, you can go to compute, and here they have a pools. You can set up your clusters ready inside the pools. So whenever your job cluster will start, so it doesn't take much time to start the entire cluster. It will pick up from the pools and then proceed further. So your cluster time would save a lot by using these pools. So you can see the only option that is coming out is your cluster pools. With the help of your cluster pools, you can save a lot of time. So that is key. So no need to look at the other options also. So that was all the questions based on the production pipeline and the Databricks SQL. So those were 8 questions. I suggest you to go the Databricks practice questions on associate. You may find few more questions there. Now, moving to the second part, or maybe the last part, part 5 of the topic is data governance. Let me go. Yeah, so data governance. So before I go, I would like to show you a documentation on this, and then we'll proceed further to the questions. I So data governance, I am using an PDF of Mr. Derar sir, who have done a very beautiful course content on the Udemy. So I strongly recommend you to please uh, purchase that also on the preparation and on the uh, exam preparation. There are two courses available there. So I have picked up a PDF from there. So data governance model. So this is really important. So you look at the syntax here. So there are mostly 3 to 4 questions based on this same syntax. So if you want to grant a permission to any of the users or any of the object, maybe a catalog, maybe an schema, or maybe an objects within the schema to a particular user, the syntax says in this way: grant, you give a privilege on that particular object and that object name to the user or a group. So please be very careful on this. In an exam they will confuse a lot. So they will confuse your grant. First, they'll give you an object name, or then the privilege, then the username, and then the object name, and so on. So be very clear to this. Grant, even in a real time, you can grant and revoke it by using a UI. Databricks has got that feature by using a UI, but in the exam perspective, they will ask you on the query itself. So data governance by using a SQL query. So grant the privilege on that object, specify that object name to the user or the company. For example, you grant the select on the table name to the particular user. So that is how the syntax is. Let me cancel this. Yeah, scroll down. And what are the different objects you can give? So you can give a permission to a catalog, to a schema, to a table, view, function, or any file. So it can be any of this. And what would be the privileges? So the privileges can be a select, or a modify, or a create, or read metadata, usage, or all privileges. So these are the privileges you can give on that object. Let us look at an example here. So example is again grant privilege on object name to a specific. Let us go back and look at the questions based on the data governance. So let us look at the first question here. Which of the which part of the Databricks platform can a data engineer use to revoke the permission from the users on the tables? Oh, that is very simple. You can grant and you can revoke the permissions by using a data explorer. So as of now, that is today, 12th of September, previous week only, they have changed the name from data explorer to a catalog explorer. So just give me a second. So if you look at a new Databricks workspace here instance, it has changed from a data explorer to a catalog explorer. So maybe in your exam, you might see a catalog explorer as an option, or if it is a data explorer also it works, but don't get confused. Both means the same thing. So it may be your catalog explorer or your uh, this one catalog explorer, and where you can I have created a new catalog actually by enabling the Unity catalog. So that is a different topic, guys. Unity catalog, if you want to know more about that, I have created a separate playlist for that. You can watch that. So you can see it is a catalog explorer. In this catalog explorer, if I click on this, You can click on the catalog or within the schema or the objects within that. In permissions, you can grant and revoke. You get both the options here. So the option would be Data Explorer or a Catalog Explorer. Very simple. Let me go further to the next question. A new data engineering team has assigned an ELT project. Uh, the new data engineering team will need a full privilege on the database. So very, very important, full privilege on the database customers to fully manage the project. Which of the following command can be used to grant full permissions on the database? So they are talking about the database, and recently Databricks have again calling it as a schema and not a database. So they have been calling as a schema only, but in your exam it may be schema or it may be database. Both means the same thing. So you need to be very careful here. So we need to grant a permission. So every option starts with grant. As they are saying that full privilege. So obviously it would be all privileges. So you can focus on B or E. So look at the options here. It will confuse you a lot. So it is saying that grant all privileges. E also says that grant all privileges on database team to customers. This will confuse you a lot. As I've told you, if you look at the documentation, let me show you the documentation once again. So here it is like the object name to the specific user or a group of user. Here find out who is the user and who is the group. So here engineering team. So team, the team should be at the end. So the table name or the database name would be customers. So that would be answer E here. We need to be careful. That is about the second question. Grant all privileges, that is the privileges on the object name customer as your database name or a schema name to a specific user or a team. Cool. That is second. Look at the third question. Moving to the next question. A new data engineering team has been assigned to work on the project. The team will need an access to the database customers in order to see what table already exists. So they just want to see. Okay, the team has its own group team. Which of the following command can be used to grant the necessary permissions on the entire database to the team? So before I show you the options, I would like to show you a documentation here. So look at the privileges. Select, it will read access to an object. Modify, it will add and delete. Create, it can create a new object. It can view an object and its metadata. When you say usage, there is no effect required to perform any action on the database object. That is a privilege called usage, and that is a key point here. They want to, they need an access to the database customer in order to see what table already exists. So let me show you this. So the keyword here is usage. Look at this usage, but they don't want on the catalog, they want on the database. So the option would be database, and the table or the database name is customers, the team. The answer would be here, E. So many get confused, like, will you give a view option here? View is not a correct privilege, but usage is the correct privilege. So don't get confused between view and usage. There is no privilege called as of view. There is no privilege as of view. So the only option that would come is E, usage. Okay. So that's all about the data governance, guys. So you just look at the documentation. I would give you the link of that PDF also in the description. You can just refer those PDFs. So thank you very much for watching this video, guys. If you like the content, please do subscribe to my channel, and please do share with your friends, those who are preparing for the Databricks Associate. So I tried my best to explain you all the concepts. So if you look at all the videos from part 1 to part 4 and 5, you will get a clear understanding at a high level, basic to intermediate level, of what Databricks is. Even though you are preparing for the exam or not, you will get a clear understanding of what Databricks is and what are the features of the Databricks. So I wish everyone, those who are preparing for this exam, all the very best. Hope for the best. Thank you again. Thank you. Keep learning, guys. Bye bye. See you in the next video. Take care.